Hello, everyone. I'm Mateus Larsan from Restorationist Action, and today I have the great honor to interview John Farrell, one of the best channels that I found on YouTube this year. He's got an amazing story and amazing content. He's done very much a deep investigation about NFP theme or natural family planning and how that is very against God's will and Catholic doctrine. So I'm pleased to welcome John Farrell on our show. Thank you for participation. John, how are you?
Oh, I don't know if I could be much better. I slept in a little this morning for the first time in a long time because I stopped going to the Daily Novus Ordo that I normally go to because my wife goes there, and that's the church we got married in. And so I've been going there daily mass since 1989. And then, but now I have my divorcing wife who had it's extortion, when you take someone to court. So she took all my stuff at court, took the kids and the house and the money and the dog and all that. And then she goes up to communion and you're like, okay, so which one of us is going to heaven here? You know what I mean? Who's the guilty spouse? If everyone gets communion, where's the fault? And I'm talking to the priest and everything. And they basically, the answer is no comment. We're not talking about that because it butts up against NFP law. When you start connecting the dots, this is why it's hard. You have to connect the dots. Just like E. Michael Jones says, contraception causes drive-by shootings. Okay, that's true, but how? A, B, C, D, E, F. That's how. Now we have, so the same thing with NFP causes mass annulment and divorce. How? So that's where I kind of come in. I start like putting the pieces together. Sorry to talk too much, but I want to finish what I was saying. So recently, somebody sent me an email explaining how St. Thomas Aquinas says, if your priest is sinful, you can't go to communion there because the Bible says, do not eat with such a one who is a public sinner, a manifest sinner. And I'm going, okay, well, these people are giving communion to my wife, who's a manifest sinner, not just a notorious, or I think so, or I'm reading her heart, or I'm judging the way she is inside. No, you don't do that. I can't judge what you thought in confession the other day. No, but if somebody is public, manifest, objective, you can see. So Mateus, if I took your house and kids at gunpoint, that's sort of manifest. You see it, okay? It's not, I don't know, I'm letting God judge. No, I judge it, dude. So the priests are like, yes, we're giving her communion anyway. So we both go up to communion together. And I was like, this is, so I basically never opened my eyes, but sometimes I'd look to make sure I wasn't going to crash into somebody while I'm going up to communion. I'd see her feet right there next to me. And I'm like, that's her feet. I know it. And then I was looking at this St. Thomas Aquinas thing. And I'm like, I can't go there anymore. I'll have to find a daily mass somewhere. There's other masses around here I can go to. It's a little less convenient, but whatever. So point being, Matt, can I call you? Do people ever call you just Matt?
No, but you can call me.
Kind of American.
It's a cultural privilege.
Yes. So the point is, I slept in because I didn't have to get up for mass. I'm going to go tonight, the 5:30. A vigil, which is going to be a Novus Ordo special with bongos and lots of altar women and music to shake the rafters. Can you dig it? Can you feel it, Matt? Do they have those masses where you are in Brazil?
They have terrible masses, like capoeira masses, samba masses, all this stuff, horrible stuff.
Something, you see some of these clown masses and crazy people. And a lot of times, a lot of it is way down south, like where you are. You'll see some of these priests doing their cool dancing. And I'm like, they don't really do that in the USA much. But a lot of it is, they're either speaking Portuguese or Spanish or something. And it's like, you got a little bit in Ireland too. It's crazy. But something?
Yeah.
It's, Mateus, it's taking things to its logical conclusion. So what I mean by that is, if we are God, because we are consecrating, we're facing liturgical west, we're doing the consecration to the people, then hey, there's not a lot of reverence needed. So this is why once you start changing one fundamental thing, next thing, and after a while, people stand up and they'll say, I can blow bubbles with my gum in mass because God wants me to feel happy, because it's cool. So they see what I'm saying, and then they do all this stuff with the mass. So this is why you have transgender storybook hour here in the USA, where they read to the kids the guys dressing up as chicks.
Horrible.
Because who's to say it's wrong? Wrong based on what?
Wrong based on what?
It's not. Oh yeah, it's not natural. Oh really? Is using the conjugal act to not have babies natural? Oh, that's what I thought. Now go away, Catholic. Is that what you think? See? So I'm like, wait a minute. And I started with this kind of annulment. So my wife, we have the nice Catholic family, the 5 kids, we homeschool, daily mass. What's the problem? But what happens is people feel things inside from when they were little kids. They have wounds or hurts. And the USA especially has got crazy stuff with the way kids get raised these days, just trashing them emotionally. It's not as bad, I don't think, in Brazil or in Botswana or in Chile or in Peru. USA is nuts because the structure of marriage is out the window, 100% out. So the kids, a large percentage of kids get emotionally crushed at a young age. And now they're trying to put the pieces of their heart, mind, and soul together. And a lot of time, like you heard about, I'm rambling so much. Sorry. You heard about that girl in Italy who just got euthanasia. Is it? Yeah. Who got Italy?
I think it's Spanish.
Spanish girl. Excuse me. So look at her. Because she was abandoned, her parents got divorced. So she's abandoned by the parents, put in this home where she's exposed to problems. Now she gets messed up. It's a downward spiral. So it's in a way, is it her fault? Yes and no, but you don't want to. In other words, people who get exposed to evil have a tougher time, which is why we want everyone to be Catholic, because you start getting involved in sin, it makes it even harder to get it straight. Now then, so people tell me, why do you keep talking about NFP all the time, John? You're just a nutcase. You're talking about it way too much. There's other problems. This is not that big a deal. Da 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 da. I'm like, actually, it's a foundational problem, and also it's the hidden cancer that no one wants to.
I would like to make a point about what you just said.
Yes.
What really captured my attention about your content is because we study a lot about the ralliements of church, or what it means when the church makes an agreement with the modernity, with modern world, and accept the doctrine or the practice of something that is unchristian by its nature. What it means when church accepted the fruits of French Revolution, the church accepted by its pastors the political system that sustains the modern world. And NFP is kind of like the church's ralliement about marriage. What it means when church doesn't sustain the apostolic doctrine about marriage, but incorporates and embraces the modernity way of thinking about marriage.
Does marriage belong to the state or does it belong to the church? Okay, so it does belong to the church, but when it belongs to the state, that's where all the problems happen, because separations are not done in accord with divine law. And yeah, there have been concordats, as in agreements between church and state regarding marriage. Now, if there's a concordat and the church says, look, civil courts of Brazil or civil courts of the USA, if you handle your separations according to divine law, we'll let you do them. But if you don't, we're not going to. So that's how it works. And there are, I think, in Italy, and there have been some examples of where the annulments or the separations are performed by the state because the church has an agreement with them. Just like the bishop has an agreement with any vicar. He says, I'm going to make you the vicar to handle this separation case. as my proxy. So that's what can happen. But yeah, I think it was Pope Paul VI, was it, who removed his papal tiara? Was he the first guy to do that? Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a continuation. Things start early, and then they start. Then next thing you know, you have priests doing cumbia dancing on the altar. See, it's just a progression. And
Pachamama worshiping.
Yeah, how did we get here? Right. I don't even want to say that demon's name. They use a substitute sometimes. You gotta be careful. But anyhow, back to the NFP, I guess. And before the phone call, I can't remember what I was saying. You're supposed to help me out, but we lost the trail. I guess maybe we were talking about how I suppose how NFP undermines the legal definition of this. Now,
exactly.
In your country, what percentage of Catholics get divorced?
I believe at little 40%, I'd say.
40%.
Maybe more.
That's a lot.
Because Brazil is a very Catholic country, but only on name. Everyone is Catholic per se, but not everyone goes to mass every day. I believe that just 10% of Catholics in Brazil attend Sunday masses, but they baptize their child, they marry in churches, but they are all getting divorced. Do you understand?
Yeah, Mexico is similar. There's a lot of this. It's kind of like you're talking to these Catholics, and you're like, "Hello, anyone home in there? What are you doing?"
Yeah.
They just think it's sort of they go, but
Mexico is a little different because Freemasons are Catholics, the drug dealers are Catholics. Everyone in Mexico is Catholic, like man. Everyone.
Crazy. Well, and I suppose then there's pressure to keep everybody Catholic, so you give them what they want. In other words, you don't have to be Protestant. We'll be Protestant right along with you. That's what.
Yeah.
So how do we make contraception? How do we make contraception Catholic, Mateus? How do we do it?
Mm-hmm.
The answer is make marriage about love. That's how we do it. And who wants less love? Raise your hand. Oh, not you. Are you a hater? That's what I thought. Okay. So everyone wants, so they come in, they're like, hey, let me give you guys some legal love. And everyone's like, all the feminists are like, yes, this is great. And all the guys are like, well, if she's happy, that's great. And, we want the option to not have, so they take the conjugal act, which is it's based in nature off, the marriage is an office of nature. So something we have in common with all animals is reproduction. You can't change that. So when you start taking it and giving it a new essence, you create a new legal definition of consent. Now you are consenting to love, and you do not have love to give. You cannot consent. You cannot give what you do not have. Now, if you have, what is the currency there in Brazil? What do you don't use dollars. What do you
reais.
I can't even say that.
Yeah, reals.
Reals?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you have 1,000 reals in your pocket, you can give that to me, and you're able to give that to me, and you have the capacity to give that to me. But if you have to give me that, I don't know, in a loving way or a concerned way, you over time, it's like what am I getting? It gets a little confusing, which is why people don't want to talk about it. They get away with so much. But the consent now is to a life of love, and you can't give that until you're dead. So consent only happens now at death. And if you ask a tribunal, when does consummation happen? You thought consummation happened on the wedding night, didn't you?
Exactly.
Wrong. It happens at death. Because just like Christ on the cross, consummatum est, right?
Mhm.
He didn't. He did after his whole life was done, and he did what he consented to do, which is for God's will. It's consummated at death. If you consummate your total gift of self for your whole life, that is consummated at death, and you're getting perpetual consent. So now the legal definition, like I talked about the $1,000 whatever you guys call it, I can't remember the word, that you were going to give me, is now the perpetual consent of your whole. So you no longer are consenting one time, but you're perpetually consenting, which means the thing that you consented to is undefined and it's not done. Therefore, you can divorce, Mateus, with offending nothing. If you show up to your wedding, but you don't take the vows and you run out the back door early and you go, you decide you're not going to do this, you have not divorced them. You have not violated the marriage contract because it doesn't exist yet. It's kind of not cool what you did, but it didn't offend anything legally, except your betrothal, which you're supposed to do. But same thing now, Mateus. If NFP is nature and marriage is nature, it means the telos, the thing that we're after, is no longer procreation, but it's love. And this takes a lifetime to consent to. And so you have no more marital debt. You have no more the object you consented to is the lifetime of consent, the lifetime of love, which is feminist, because now there is no right over the body for acts. There's perpetual consent to that, which is why John Paul II talks about we must respect the freedom of the gift. In other words, you have no rights, you just have gift. So if I paid you a lot of money and said, you're going to do a podcast with me every Saturday for the next 2 years, and I'm going to give you $2 million right now, would you agree to that? You probably would. $2 million? Yeah, man, I'm set. Woohoo! Okay, but if then I would have a right to see you every Saturday. I'd have that right. And if you didn't show up, I'd come sue you or something, or I'd call the cartels, make something happen. You know, you don't want to mess with me. So, but if the consent needs every time, and then you consent to open consent, then I have to be nice to you to hope you show up every Saturday. And I have no right to say, you promised you have to be here. No, it's a consent thing. So it has to be mutual. So our meeting today is mutual. We both agreed to it. You don't have a right to make me be here, and I don't have a right to make you be here. But now, with the new definition of marriage, there's no more consent to this. The object must be objective, or it's just perpetually consented to. And now we have marital debt out the window, and the marriage is based on always trying to keep the emotions good, which is a recipe for disaster. You've heard the expression, good fences make good neighbors, right?
Right.
And that makes sense because you have neighbors. How far away does your neighbors live?
Next door.
Okay. Do they ever come over in the middle of the night and go in your refrigerator and just borrow the mayonnaise or some eggs?
Of course not.
They can't. No, because you have a fence, you have property, but you're friendly with them. But if they started doing that, that'd be kind of try your patience a little bit. Good marriages have good contracts so that the husband and wife know what's expected, know what the law says, know what they must do, and they do it. Your neighbors might want to come into your refrigerator at 3 a.m, but they know they can't, so they deal with it. They just go, well, I would like to do this, but I can't. So I'm going to go to the store the next day and get it done or whatever. But in marriage, if if everything is totally open and there's no rights, just a bunch of, then whoever wants to do the 3 a.m. I'm taking your food does, and you say, hey, you know what, Mateus, I think you need to pray about this, and I think you need to work on your selfishness, and you know what, I think you need to work on your anger a little bit too, because you're supposed to lay down your life for me, and if I happen to come in the refrigerator at 3 a.m, I think you need to pray more instead of objecting to what I'm doing, because this is a total gift of self. This is not, you have, so you have, once you destroy the legal basis of marriage, you might as well have a country with no borders or no government. And that's not going to go too well, because now everyone's like, I can't go to small claims court because there is no court. There is no justice. There's no law. There's just everybody getting along. But when people don't get along, what do? You have anarchy, and now marriage has anarchy, and you just divorce and try again. And so it's an attack on patriarchy. And another thought I had was, you've heard of the new,
just going to start about a new topic, but
no, I was going to talk. Yeah, it was the new Archbishop of the Church of England, who's a girl,
right?
And this is the logical extension of, when you destroy the patriarchy, you don't need this. So once you take the marital debt or the purpose of marriage and make it about love, then you necessarily have destroyed the rights of the domestic church. The domestic church no longer has a head. It does not need to be male. So if the domestic church can be egalitarian and just as female, then so can the real church. So this is why you can say NFP promotes women priests. NFP, it's just a logical progression. So you caught me out of the blue one day and started watching my videos, and then you thought, I want to talk to John Farrell. What are some of the other things that you thought of, or questions that you had?
Well, one of the things that really caught me the attention on your content is that marriage traditionally had the meaning and objective of making child, of reproducing, and that is explicit in the book of Tobiah. I believe I'm pronouncing it right. When they both spouse each other with the explicit intent of reproducing, more for the sake of the child and less for the sake of the love of the both. And in your last video about Aquinas versus Afonso de Ligorio, I believe it was a very good discussion, and I would like you to summarize it a little bit so we can continue our conversation.
Oh, Aquinas versus Saint Alphonsus?
Yeah.
Yes. So Saint Alphonsus was known as he was kind of known as a liberal, a little bit, because Aquinas was like, hey, XYZ, 1, 2, 3 there, and Alphonsus is like, well, hang on a minute. And so, but at the same time, the popes say, whatever Saint Alphonsus says, you just take it to the bank. He's the guy. And he does make a decent point. And let me back up a second. I really reject this idea, and I think every Catholic must, that marriage evolves, or we have your opinion and my opinion. And Saint Aquinas has a view, and Alphonsus has a view, and De Sales has a view, and Saint Clement of Alexandria and Augustine have their view, and the views evolve and change. No. Procreation happens one way, and it's the same no matter what anyone's view is. That's it. So we have to go with that. Now, Aquinas said that if you are trying to remedy concupiscence in yourself, that's at least a venial sin, because it's an indulgence. 1 Corinthians 7:6. And Alphonsus says, hang on a minute, no, because the purpose of marriage, one of the reasons you're allowed to get married is for remedy of concupiscence. So you're using it legally, and as long as we have the correct telos, then if you're using it, that's why I use this visual all the time. As long as we're trying to go to this first, procreation first, then you can use it for remedy of concupiscence. And he backed it up with the Bible, and I think he quoted Chrysostom as well. So his point was pretty. It did make sense. It's. I couldn't find an objection to it, and it also makes it. It does tend to make sense with menopause also, because when you read Aquinas, he will say any conjugal acts during menopause are venial sin. That's what he'll say. If you read what he says, you have to kind of really stretch what he says and put some Alphonsus into it and say that no, since there's no more pregnancy available, you do need to have an excuse for the conjugal act, and it is a legitimate excuse for remedy of concupiscence. So things tend to wind down at that age anyway, to a degree. And that tends to make sense, I think. So I wanted to go there. My next video is going to be about vasectomy and what Alphonsus says, because before that, I didn't really have the Alphonsus because it's all in Latin and there's not a lot of translation. A lot of this stuff is difficult to get. The St. Francis de Sales Introduction to the Devout Life. You're familiar with that book?
Yeah, Philotea.
There's the original version is the one that's nearly impossible to obtain. The French version, the one where he really talks his real words, it's all been kind of edited out. If you look for that book, everywhere is the edited version, but the real version is the French version, and that's where he says, no, the conjugal act it's going to be a mortal sin or a venial sin if you're not careful, and this is what you got to do. And he laid it out, and I was like, wow. So he explains there's an order to procreative acts. You have to have that order. Now what we have is just significance. So it's kind of like, I don't know, as long as you have a car and it's parked in the driveway, it looks like a car, it has the sign of a car, it has the icon of a car. Whether it actually drives or not, it doesn't really matter, as long as it looks like a car and it looks like every other car. The engine could be made out of solid rock. You have no idea. It just looks like it. So they're saying as long as you have that icon of a car, it's a car and it's okay. But nature says, no, that car has to actually drive. So the conjugal act isn't just the icon of Christ and his church, which it is. It's also naturally fertile because God made it that way. Increase and multiply is nature. So this is why NFP is okay according to Humanae Vitae, because it doesn't violate the sign. Okay? And this is why vasectomy is okay with NFP, because it doesn't violate the sign. If you're a eunuch and you get married and you do the conjugal act with your wife as a eunuch, you're not violating anything, because procreation is no longer the number one thing. Love is. So as long, if procreation happens, God works miracles, but as long as you're pursuing the love, this is why so like I said, when you change the law, when you change something, it's just a matter of time before you have to change everything else. And it took them till 1977 to go, wait a minute, we have a contradiction with our vasectomy policy, because we're saying vasectomy equals invalid marriage, because the Pope 500 years ago and also St. Alphonsus said this is not procreative in nature because you've cut off what could procreate. All right. Even though the nuts and bolts are there, there's no procreation happening. So therefore it is not consent. You're not. But we're saying that NFP is nature. So how can we say now that vasectomy is not nature? Because if you're just cutting, this is why everyone contracepts and divorces, because there's no nature to violate, because it's about love and it's a lifetime consent. So if I divorce, I'm just stepping out before the wedding is over. You know, if Christ came down from the cross before he consummated it, it wouldn't have worked. He didn't see, even though he consented to the crucifixion, it's not done until he does.
Mm-hmm.
So the marriage, if marriage is if marriage is love, as I said, you never consented until it's done. Until that lifetime of love is done, your consent is still in process. It's never completed.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I would like to talk a little. One of the things that it always seems very strange to me is that this definition of nature by modern view is something like if it has a male and a female, it is natural. But it is not necessarily that. What I mean, one of the NFP most widespread methods of contraception is the Billing method.
Yes.
Do you follow me? Yeah,
Billings method.
Billings method.
Yeah.
And although it is natural in the sense that it doesn't use any modern technology or something of that nature, it is something that is very counterintuitive. You know what I mean? That it needs a very hard effort to make the things go contrary to nature. Because I don't want to get too much specific, because it's a little embarrassing to explain how the method works. What it means is it is a very hard effort to stop nature doing its thing. You know what I mean? But Billings method, that it's sold as natural, it is a very hard effort to make it seems like natural. But you've got to go a long way. Yeah.
It's technology. All right. So we had a brief break, but I was going to pick up on, I was going to bring in an example of Humanae Vitae and where it tries to bridge these two gaps between how contraception is wrong. However, we could make it okay because it just doesn't violate the icon, the truth of the Marriage Act, whatever that means. It's like just like the car without an engine looks like a car, you can't tell if it actually drives or not. A conjugal act using NFP looks like a conjugal act, so the fertility doesn't matter, and that's why we have allowed the vasectomy, because as long as you're performing the conjugal act, it doesn't have to be procreative anymore. So let's get to the internal disconnect, contradiction in Humanae Vitae. This is why it allows all the contraception. So right here, you can see Humanae Vitae 14. It says something perfectly true. It says what the church always teaches, always has taught, and always will, because nature never changes. By the way, what do you think about NFP, or what do you think about Humanae Vitae? Do you like any of it, or what do you think about it?
I believe it opens some doors that that are a little dangerous, to say the least.
Correct. Pius XII said that when you start making love, number one, it's a revolutionary act causing confusion. It leads to errors. Exactly right. That's why you and I are here talking. Now then, Humanae Vitae 14.
I would like to point that up to, before you continue, that up to Alphonsus, the guilty of the sinner was all about what law he broke. What it means, it doesn't matter. It didn't matter before Alphonsus the subjective consciousness about what law was being breaking. But from Alphonsus and on, and to our days, it depends a lot about how the sinner views what law he's breaking. And this about the the contraception, the intention of the conjugal act.
And your point, we were talking about grave sin versus mortal sin. So you're saying back before Alphonsus, people used to say, "It's hey, dude, you're doing this grave thing that's automatically mortal sin." But now we take more into account the judgment, the personal culpability of people.
Exactly.
Now, I don't think that I think that that's taken to an extreme where it's almost impossible to commit a mortal sin now, because who really wants to jump in a lake of fire forever? Raise your hand. Nobody. So nobody commits a mortal sin. The truth of the matter is nothing has ever changed on this. Nothing. It's the same for all who. However, I don't think Alphonsus changed it necessarily either. The way it's more legally accurate to say you have the guilt of grave sin rather than you've committed a mortal sin. And this is why legally it's better, because people can nowadays, they can say, hey, I'm just following my conscience. This isn't a sin. What are you talking about? But
it was a sin. I didn't knew it.
Yeah. But people can sort of tell. I didn't know torturing puppies was a sin. But, you felt really bad inside when you did it. So that's sort of a sign that you got to kind of look into it. Okay. So anyway, I agree. The pendulum swung really far on that. But
it's like that before Alphonsus, things were black on white. And with Alphonsus, it gets some shades of gray, but they are not a total breaking with tradition. But the application of Alphonsus' moral theology pretty much breaks the tradition. You understand?
I do. So it's almost like the United States Constitution. They say we've created a country, a republic, if you can keep it. So it's only good for Christian people. So when a bunch of people say, hey, this isn't nailed down, I'm going to do whatever I want because my God says this is fine. So we have to be very careful, and this is why terms need to be defined, or you can just run with them and you can say, I'm following my conscience. I tortured 5 puppies to death today, but I'm following my conscience, and the Holy Spirit told me it was okay. And what are you going to say to that? You see what I mean? It's like, it's not a sin. So all this stuff about, like, I opened up the video, we talked about how I'm not receiving communion from the church where my wife goes that we got married in, because they give her communion. But the priest said, you know what, John, we're all sinners. You see what I mean? So who are we to judge? No, because we must judge what is objective and that's manifest, that we can see. Otherwise, no public sin. You can, and then you have Amoris Laetitia, and then we have that Una Caro document, and the Pope Leo is going to meet with everyone, I think, in the next few months, and they're going to have a new kind of marriage get together. And I don't know if they're going to legalize contraception or what they're going to do, but they're just because Amoris Laetitia says adultery is good. God loves adultery. Now, here's your communion. You're going to heaven with your adultery. It's if love is the thing, if love is the purpose, you can't judge that. So we have to give communion to that. Therefore, we cannot say what's right and wrong anymore. You have to say what's right and wrong, and that's all. So it's a good point that you made. And eventually people start saying, there's something about this puppy torture. There's something about it. Something's not right. I think there's some, like, yeah, I know. And there's something about these transvestite Storybrooke hours. Something's not right. Or something about the Archbishop of Canterbury being a woman. Something's not right about that. I can't quite put my finger on it. I got to start, like, hello, so it's good in a way that God allows the crazy to come up in your face, so you can see we have to get back to God. Otherwise, you get garbage. It might not happen in 5 minutes, but it will within 200 years.
Mhm.
it's going to show up, and you can't get away from it. Okay.
And
What?
this kind of understanding about what exactly is the sin, if not breaking an objective law, but the subjective feeling of breaking a law, it gives a really grave problem for confessors, for priests. So if they are if they are absolving someone and someone is breaking a law, making, for example, contraception and NFP, but they think it is lawful, does the father have the duty or not to illuminate, to explain that this is actually a sin, that contraception is a sin? Because if the culpability depends on the notion of sin, right? If the culpability depends on the notion of sin, the person doesn't have this notion that she is sinning, that it is sinning. Well, if you explain to her that she is sinning, then she will start, the person will start sinning. Do you understand? Do you follow my thought?
I think so. If in other words, if you don't tell the person it's a sin, they're going to start sinning, and their conscience will adjust to it.
Exactly. That's the point. And
right. Yes. When you start, yes, the primacy of conscience, Casti Canubi condemns that. It says, look, you can convince yourself of anything if you start saying maybe it's not gonna, it's not a sin for me or whatever. I forgot where it says it in there, but same thing with divorce or contraception, or if it feels justified to me, then it can be okay. Because if NFP is nature, then anything else can be nature too. And so if it feels okay for me, get out of here with your hate. You know, if I don't like your hair, that doesn't mean I have the right to come mess with you. It's like, dude, no, it's my stuff, but I can't judge that. You see, it's maybe that's not the best analogy, but I hear what you're saying. When terms aren't objective, and this is one reason that I think Cardinal Burke proposed the dubia to Pope Francis. Is there anything such as objective sin? That was one of the questions, and they never got an answer to that. The answer has to be no, not anymore. There's because we can't judge the culpability, so we can't start saying what's sinful and what's not sinful. Therefore, people run into all kinds of error, and carnage happens, just like the girl in Spain who got killed because their parents followed their hearts to divorce, and the daughter died because of it. This is like A, B, C, D. So we both have busy lives, and people keep interrupting. Now, we're going to get back to this notion of how sin is not defined, and therefore we're going to try to make NFP natural. And how do we do that? And why is this a problem? It's because we're going to I'll get into it and I'll explain it right quick. Let's just go to Humanae Vitae. Oh, I know what we were saying. I was asking you what you thought about Humanae Vitae, and you said it was good, but not, it created problems. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. And here's the problem. This is the Catholic part. This is the good part. This is where Humanae Vitae says what Catholics have always said and will say. Excluded is any action intended to prevent procreation. That's it. That's all you got to know. You cannot do anything intending to prevent procreation. Okay. Is NFP doing something? Is it doing something? You're like, oh no, we're not doing anything. Right? That's what no, you're planning. You are controlling. Birth control. Family planning. If you actuate a control or you actuate a plan, you are doing something. So NFP is not just a conjugal act in a void. It's a conjugal act designed to produce a certain outcome, a non-natural outcome. Okay, well, wait a minute. We're going to have to reinvent nature then, huh? So that we can call our non-natural outcome natural. Therefore, love wins, and being, sodomy is nature, blah, blah. But no, like, wait, no. We have to not violate the sign, the icon of Christ and his church. And that is iconic of the conjugal act. That's why sodomy is wrong, they'll say. So now if we're all about the sign, then we don't need fertility, and vasectomy is nature, and therefore the homos are just saying, hey, then so are we. And it just goes on, and you can't really stop it. You'll say, you've got your religion and your signs and everything. That's cool. We're not violating nature, because nature is love according to you, Catholic Church. So what are you going to tell us now? Nothing. That's what I thought. Therefore, we're going to have our gay blessings now and stuff. And people are like, wait a minute, we can't do this. Oh, really? How are we going to solve it? Get rid of NFP. Oh, we can't do that. You see the problem, Mateus? It's like, you're a naturally skinny guy, so you don't worry about it. But the people who are gorda, right? How do you say that in Portuguese? How do you say fat?
Gordo.
Gordo.
Exatamente.
Yeah, similar. Okay. The people who are super fat, they it's hard for them to, what was I making? It's hard for them to I forgot the point I was going to make.
The point is, if you plan something so you don't get the natural outcome, you are actively doing something, right?
Yes. And I was going to make an analogy. I just forgot how I was going to do that.
I have an analogy if I can.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I'm a gardener, and I know that some seeds just grow in the summer. If I plant the summer seed in the winter, and the seed naturally doesn't grow up, well, who could expect that? I know that if I plant the seed in the wrong time, it won't grow up. So NFP is kind of planting the seed in the wrong season purposefully, right? On intention. You know what I mean?
Yes. It's against reason, and it's against nature. But if the purpose is something different, which is like just what you feel like doing with your seeds, then who knows? I suppose if I was bringing up the analogy of the fat people. If you want to be able to eat food but stay skinny, you can't do that unless you just say food has nothing to do with calories or getting fat. It's just about the sign of nutrition and all the. So we have now Humanae Vitae condemning NFP right here, but it doesn't violate so then you go down to 16, and then it says, where is it? Right here. You can take advantage. So that's an action right there, taking advantage of natural cycles so that you control your birth. Doing that does not in the least offend the moral principles, so it doesn't even offend them a tiny bit. Just in case you were wondering, it's a little bit of a gaslighting thing. It's like, look, it's totally fine. It doesn't offend the moral principles, which we have just explained. The moral principles that they have just explained, Mateus, are that marriage is an icon, but not nature, because it's a significance, a sign. It's not nature. This is why they say you cannot, I think it's in Humanae Vitae 12, I think. It says you cannot, where is it, 12? The significance. The unitive significance, there it is, right there. You cannot separate the unitive significance, the sign, and the procreative significance, which is very true. The unitive significance is Christ and his church. You can't separate those. And the procreative significance is the husband and wife coming together physically, but as long as it just looks like it doesn't matter if there's procreation or not, or if it's fertile or not. So NFP does not violate the sign, but it violates the nature, which is old Catholic stuff that they always said in Humanae Vitae. We just showed it before, where it says nothing, where it says you cannot do any action, wherever that was, Humanae Vitae 12, I guess, no action. So that's all I got for Humanae Vitae. Let's see if I can get rid of this. Now, what's the solution, Mateus?
To do the things naturally, don't plan, and be truly open to life. I think it is having a marriage inspired by Tobiah example.
Right. Open to life is an interesting phrase. Open to life is another one of those weaselly phrases that you have to be careful when you use it. Really careful, because just like the person who plants his seed in the wrong season where it won't grow, he can say, I'm open to life. What's wrong? I'm planting my seeds behind the refrigerator. I'm open to life. I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing anything to the seeds. I'm planting them behind the refrigerator, or in my shoes. I'm open to life. If God can work miracles, God can do it. Okay. So the point, you can be open to life when the conjugal act is in accord with natural rules, meaning you are not you're not taking any action to avoid fertility. If you're not taking any action to avoid fertility, you can be open to life. But if you are taking action, you can't be open to life, because see what I mean? Yeah. So this is one of the reasons why I make my YouTube channel, make these videos. You got to be just careful of how you say it. Now, you have to bring it in-house. This is why I'm saying today, like in pagan Europe, before there were any monasteries, St. Ignatius set up the monastery and got going with monastic life to create culture, and it went from there. Similarly, if you're going to create your domestic church, you can't rely on your bishop, your priest, or the neighbors. You got to do it with you and her. And we both have to say, look, this is what we're going to do. So you don't marry some drug addict with green hair and tattoos. It's not going to, she's not going to, no. Opposite. So you got to find, so it almost doesn't matter too much who she is or what she looks like that much, as long as she's got the right, Yeah, as long as she's got the right things in place. That's a big deal. Your life gets better. Everything gets better. But if you can't operate with frame, if you can't be the patriarch, you're going to be dead of a stroke later, because she's going to eat your lunch, because that's what happens. It's sort of like if you have no locks on your doors and you have a bunch of money and food in there, eventually people are going to come in like, hey, I like this. Share. Turn the other cheek, Christian. Lay down your life. Give me your stuff. Like, what are you going to do? So you say, no, this is my house. I can't. No. So no definition, no marriage. And if you go down to your neighborhood Novus Ordo church right now and ask for the definition of marriage, they'll say, no comprende, can't define it, because NFP ruined the definition. So you have to, if you can find somebody, and it's very rare to find a woman that rejects NFP because it's not defined. Women are made more into relationships, and guys are more into systems and facts and stuff, like typically. So this is why this NFP is so insidious, because they want, it's legalized love, and all the girls say yes. And I also don't have to have those 17 kids. Where do I sign? I'll take that. There's nowhere to go but God. You can't get away from that fact. Very few people take the path, but that's the only one. There's now that marriage has been destroyed, starting with Martin Luther, giving it to the state, and now the state legalizing contraception, which means love wins, which means marriage is now anything or any you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
We can no longer rely on the state to do anything for us.
Actually, we can expect that the state will do everything against us.
I know. And you know something? So will the bishop.
Exactly.
So pretty much. So you can still get married in that environment, but the good news is it'll be upfront agreed and understood that we don't step out of line or we step into a lake of fire. And we have to define what that line is. And that line is separation without ecclesiastical permission and no birth control, no family planning. And the husband has the final say. And of course he has God promised, you promised charity to her and she promises obedience to you. You work, she has kids, no separation. That's it. And then you will come out the other side a much better person because everyone has selfishness, small thinking, non-generous, all sorts of little problems. So if you never get married, you turn into a cranky old guy who just says, get off my lawn. And then you get annoyed at everybody. So marriage will take your rough edges and smash them.
Mm-hmm.
So
I believe that this kind of talk is very important because if people don't know what is the true marriage, they can't look for a true marriage. If they don't know what's that doctrine and the final goal of marriage is, and the importance both to the society and to the ecclesiastical church, they will not understand and they will look for love relationships that won't give us the solutions that we are so desperate needing.
Because, yes. Men are from Mars and women are from Venus. So as the book goes, so you're you're setting yourself up for failure because you trying to figure your wife out is impossible. And the stuff that makes sense to you doesn't make sense to her. Or if you try to ask her, what should we do here? She'll throw something at you and start crying. Okay. And you're like, I just asked you a question, what should we see what I'm saying? So there's a lot of stuff that's not, when you try to make quote unity, as in we're all feeling great about each other and everything's soulmate all the time, you are absolutely going to wreck everything.
Yeah.
Because fences between neighbors is not unity. It's correct definition of neighbors. A marriage contract is not unity. It's correct definition of our roles and the structure.
Mm-hmm.
So because everyone talks about unity now, we're saying, I'm going to live with you and I'm going to share your toothbrush, Mateus, and everything, but we're never going to really get in an argument. That's going to last about 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Yeah. I'm already bothering you right now, and I'm wait till I come to your house and start eating all your tortillas. You're gonna be like,
we didn't define the contract very well before this interview.
No, we didn't need to. It's hey man, Christianity is about sharing, so I'm coming down there to start some sharing right now, and I'm gonna let you do the sharing.
Marriage apostle.
Yeah. What could go wrong? It's gonna be fine. No. So this is why you can. Like I use that analogy, how long can you, I don't have a coffee cup handy, but how long can you hold this in the air? You're like, 10 minutes, but can you hold it for 10 years? No, it becomes impossible. It's so heavy. But if you have grace to do it, you can ask for grace and you can hold this contract for 10 more.
Mm-hmm.
Unless somebody tells you it's not valid and you don't need to, and this isn't love, and he owes you more than this. You're like, I ain't doing this. I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. You can if you ask for grace and you have to. But if you don't have to, why ask for grace? I don't have to ask for grace to be able to stand on my head for 10 hours. because I don't have to. But if I did, I would. If I was being crucified upside down, I'd ask for grace to be able to deal with it. But I'm not. That's not happening to me, so I don't have to see what I mean? So unless it gets real, so unless you have a contract, you could probably jog half mile right now without too much trouble or warm up. But how about 50 miles? You take serious effort, but unless you have to, you're not going to. Anyway, there's my message to the solution to Pearl Davis and Red Pill, and the solution to all the conservative Catholic people saying, just get married, quote unquote, just get married. Just define marriage, then go for it. And the word definition means not infinite. It means finite and unchanging and particular, like specific. Now that you, so if you talk to any girl about marriage, say, hey, just, define it. And they'll say, well, it's a commitment. Commitment to what? A commitment to love. Love what exactly? See what I mean? You have to dial it in, really get down to it. And what it comes down to is the right over the body for acts suitable of themselves for the generation of children. It's right there. It's in Trent also. That is, so now you're saying, oh, am I going to be a baby slave? Are you just going to, no, that's not it. That's the contract though. And everything else we have, charity perfects nature. That's where you come in, Mateus, with the charity. Okay. That's what you tell her. It's like, hey, you don't marry me if you think I'm an uncharitable slob, but if you can take a risk on my charity, because I'm planning to go to heaven and I'm going to ask for grace. Okay. I have to love and plan. If you can trust that enough about me, and I'll trust this enough about you, and you said you won't violate the contract, and she probably won't if she says it up front. And what happens is, like you said, we said earlier, when you get in your mind that maybe this isn't a sin, then maybe I can just go with it. And it starts getting in your head. Now it takes on a life of its own. And then she's like, oh, I can't hold this anymore. And it's not a sin if I let go. Bye-bye, Mateus. It's in my head now. Boom, click, woohoo. Hello, what happened? I don't know. But if you stop it from happening, this is why the church used to burn books and have an index. You get bad ideas, take root in people's heads and turn them into weird stuff. Like ISIS people. That's weird, man. That's like you have to shoot them like they're orcs because they can't think anymore. So these ideas,
you can't fight just the actions, but the ideas that support and sustains the action.
This is why letting NFP out of the bag was really dangerous. When you start saying love wins legally through NFP, you create a big old mindset which takes root in people's behavior, and then an institution and a culture grows up around it. Now everybody in the culture is in the family planning twilight zone, and it's here comes somebody like you or me saying no, and then you want to find a wife who also is Catholic and not kind of nuts like everybody else, like woo, John Paul II, theology of the body, love. No, someone normal. It's difficult, but you can bring them around. Or they may be a total feminist when they meet you and they start talking. You're like, well, you know something, actually this feminism isn't so cool and it's witchcraft. And let me show you some things. And they might have the sense of the faithful and say, I think he's right. So nowadays there's so many nutso people walking around, but because they don't know any better, they haven't been exposed to the right. So if the people who truly want to go to heaven, if their faith comes through hearing. So if you tell them what's true, they may go, okay, I think I can do that. So news is that information, like I'm saying, is now accessible because of the internet. So we can find out what marriage, so we can, otherwise we're relying on Father so-and-so, Father Bob down the street to tell us what marriage is. And he's just reading theology of the body and the catechism. Bad idea. Bad. It's terrible. You're setting yourself up for failure. It's like crazy. And this, I emailed a bunch of people that do Catholic marriage prep for a living. And I said, you got to come on Annulment Proof channel. We'll talk about it. No takers, man.
No,
like, no way.
Zero.
Because it's their business, and their business is we need to sell love, sell chemistry, and sell this high ideal. Oh, I heard of some guy on the internet. I talked about in my last video. He was doing so much theology of the body, he got a demon.
I saw that case.
Yeah. He's trying to find that inner high cosmic Christ gender, whatever he was doing. He was trying to achieve this marital unity spirit thing that's supposed to be out there when you're really channeling that JP2 spirit, you know what I mean, kind of thing. It's like, so you kind of, it's almost like it becomes a sort of a marriage worship situation, you know, and you're worshiping the body in a way. You're worshiping the conjugal act. I make that joke.
Exactly, the conjugal act worship. One of the things that I observe in many young males is that they intend to marry just to solve their lust problems. You know what I mean? They search the remedy of concupiscence, and that's fine to some extent. But studying your videos, I realized that marriage, if is not the panacea against all problems with lust, because if you do the math, the times there's what 2 or more, maybe 3 months in a year that it is lawful to have relationships that are not at least venial sins, because when the spouse is pregnant is not illicit, is illicit. When they are in their period is not licit. So people get into the marriage thinking it is a panacea to all their lust problems, and actually it isn't, and they get really frustrated. You know what I mean?
Yes. It takes on a life of its own. It's like, if I have a drug problem, if I can just access the drugs, my problem is solved. But no, it makes it worse. It can make it worse. So if you realize you're an alcoholic, you might limit yourself severely, and then you'll be okay. But yes,
and you can't access it the whole year, but only 2, maybe 3 months a year. That's really tough, man. Really tough. Really tough.
Yeah, but you know, if, like, I think it's Saint Pope Alexander or Saint Alexandria or something, he was saying, for the spiritual man, when she's pregnant, the answer is no. But not all of us are spiritual enough. Not all of us are super saints. You know what I mean? So people, it's a spectrum. How saintly are you? How much of a remedy of concupiscence do you have? Things change, whatever. So that's available, but it's not the best. Yeah. And this is where Saint Alphonsus kind of said, well, hang on a minute, Aquinas. You do have it is in the Bible, you have the right to marry for remedy of concupiscence. Therefore, to use the act for that reason is still okay. At any rate, if you're having a lot of kids, your remedy of concupiscence problems kind of take care of themselves. You're so busy with the kids and stuff, and she's pregnant, and it's like, it kind of puts it, you don't even have to try to figure God out. Just trust him. He's already got the biology and the human nature down cold. We can scratch the surface, but like you used in that bell curve, like here, this thing, like you used in this, people come up now and they're like, oh, we're so smart now. We know how to make things better. And it's actually, then you get really smart. You're like, no, just trust in God. It's like, trust in God to get married. No, we know how to do marriage better now. Actually, you don't. You got to go back to here. So, but there's other people, like, I've been praying about this, and I think I do have a vocation. I hear a supernatural calling, not a natural calling, but a supernatural one. By the way, people call marriage a vocation now, Because if marriage is love and Christ is love and the Trinity is love, it's our supernatural vocation to love. Because no, it's marriage is an office of nature, not an office of supernature. That's why it's not a vocation. There was a few different girlfriends and stuff I had. I either didn't know what marriage was, wasn't interested in marriage, or eventually I started realizing that they were interested in marriage, and I was like, what? I have no idea. And so then after my mom called me when I was 26, I started getting a little more serious about it. And then, I met my wife. I'm from 9 kids. She's from 9 kids. We both go to daily mass. I'm 27 and she's 23. What's the problem here? Everything seemed to be lining up just fine, right? And we'll get married, and I mean, it seemed like it was just going to be fine. Like everything was perfect, more or less. And I knew, like every woman, they're all a little bit nuts. Not all of them, but a lot of them. They just,
a little bit.
They're emotional, man. They're thinking stuff, and they, you say, hey, what'd you do today? And they're like, stop being such a rude person to me. I hate you. Oh, okay. Hang on. Let me think of that bone fruit. Hello. It's like stuff like that. And so then after a while, as we said, when things aren't defined, people's minds start defining it for them. And they start feeling like, hey, this is really hard. And I'm supposed to be feeling, because of NFP, I'm supposed to be feeling this total love community thing. And I don't really feel it with this annulment proof guy. He seems like kind of a emotionless caveman something. I mean, let's just talk to me. I've got no emotion. I've got no sympathy. I'm just like, I'm a wreck. I'm just a big weird guy, right? So you can't have a relationship with me because I'm so goofy or whatever. Therefore, she starts heading for the exit mentally years earlier, because she can, and she's told that marriage is this vocation to this high order of love, Trinitarian soulmate sharing something or other that guy got a demon trying to pursue, And so I'm going to start making things worse so that I can justify leaving, because now things are really bad, And so now I can say, look, you're not capable of this pinnacle of love that we keep talking about. And John Paul II spent 1,000 pages describing like, it's like, something, just for fun, I'm going to push pause, and I have a short video of John Paul II. Okay, so here is some kind of Franciscan priest or something talking a little bit about theology of the body and John Paul II and what's known as this marital love thing that you can. So we're going to try to put what he says in your blue collar dictionary. What is he even talking about of what marriage is? Let's listen to what this guy says, and it'll be clear why everyone gets confused and then red pilled. Okay, take it away.
St. John Paul II spoke about the law of the gift, which is this idea, even though our culture may be inclined to tell us that when we get things for ourselves, when we sort of look out for ourselves, that's when we're fulfilled. But John Paul II said, actually, it's the opposite. It's when we give ourselves away, when we make our lives a gift, that we become fulfilled as men and women. However, there can be a big mistake that sometimes we'll give ourselves away too much in the wrong way, which doesn't lead to fulfillment, but rather leads to burnout or breakdown. That's our human nature in relationship with God, and recognize there's a sort of a continuum to how we grow towards human maturation. And it's self-knowledge leading to self-acceptance, leading to self-possession, leading to self-gift. These 4 steps of human maturation allow us to move towards this goal of giving our lives away like Jesus did. But the question is, how do we move through that to get to the right place?
How do I get this? Did you understand any of what he just said?
Yeah. I understood the words, but the meaning is like the marriage is a continuum of giving yourself towards the other person. And what's the meaning exactly?
He just created a legal black hole
Yeah.
So you're going to commit your money, your body, your children, your future, your emotions to that thing that he just said, which is we don't really know. We're saying that we need, it sounds kind of cool. We're trying to give ourselves away, but we can't do it too hard or in the wrong way because we won't achieve whatever. Now, I just played what he said, and you can't remember half of it. It went in. It's like, this is the problem. When you start talking, the reason I brought it up is we said theology of the body is 1,000 pages. It's a bunch of pages of what you just heard. It all sounds really smart and sounds really nice, but it boils down to marriage isn't biology. It's self. It's you're trying to give yourself and conform yourself to the other self, and you end up it's just too impossible. You're not, it's terrible. You can't, because when push comes to shove, like I said, when she's like getting irrational on you, or you're getting tired, or there's some kid pouring gasoline and lighting matches in the garage, and another kid's running down the street, and the cops are in the backyard, and you're going like, we need to solve some problems here, not talk about this high level of self-gift stuff. It gets too real, man. And then she's like, this isn't working. This is 2K. I can't do this. And this is not what we're supposed to be having. So in other words, when people get this in their mind that they're not achieving this level of surreal or sublime self-gift that this priest with the long beard is laying out for us, they head for the exit. And the women usually do it very much ahead of time, and they start creating a new plan. Like, you want to have a plan for where you want to live, your Catholic community, your good society. She's going to make a plan. Oh, I remember we were talking about society versus partnership. She's going to have a plan for her new man. She's got to have her plan, dude, before you. So she's going to get the other man lined up while she's with you, but you don't know that. And this can go on for years. And she's subtly keeping you alive by giving you some breadcrumbs, but in the back she's doing her other thing behind the scenes. But it's all Catholic because she's trying to pursue what the man in the beard just said is God's will. And you're not capable of this, but I can't just pull the plug because I need some support, and that's what happens. I wonder though, while I'm thinking about it, tell me about annulments in Brazil. What is the annulment rate? Do you know?
I've got a friend that worked with as a secretary of a priest that was one of the judges of annulments, and he told me that he never saw a case that was dismissed. So in practice, I haven't heard of any case neither. So in practice, anyone that tries for annulment will get it. On basis of what? Generally because the spouses didn't know what marriage was about. That's the
right. So standard. What is marriage about? Listen to the man with the beard. He'll tell you what marriage is about. And if you don't know that, you're not capable of marriage. You can't even repeat what he just said. He just said,
no, yeah.
It's like, hey, man, it's like this huge, it's this, you got to get all the types of love and self-gift all lined up perfectly. And now you're like, what? Dude, it's right over the body. You got a body. I think it's right here. I can feel it. I can get. What?
Intelligence is capturing the essence of the thing, not its accidents. So if you can't say what's the essence of marriage, you don't know what marriage is all about. But if you say that marriage is the mutual loving of the spouses, the sharing, you're not defining what's marriage, and that's all about. It is really funny, ironic, by the way, that Novus Ordo in Brazil doesn't teach about procreation in marriage, but when they need the open to life clause to annul a marriage, they go for it. So you are not taught in the parish that you gotta have kids in your marriage. But if you don't want to be married anymore, you get an annulment because you didn't knew that you had to have kids in your marriage. Do you get it?
Yeah, there's some of that. That's right. They say, hey, if you said will you welcome children, and they say yes at the vows, they'll marry you on the basis of the marriage contract, but they'll annul you on the basis of the marriage covenant. Like you said, there's the essence and there's the accidents. That is correct. There's the restricted legal definition and there's everything that comes with it. And what NFP does is it takes the accidents and it makes them essence.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. Because some of the accidents of the conjugal act is you feel closer to your spouse, the relationship gets better, you have more meaning, you feel more, quote, bonded to them, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's some biology that goes on with oxytocin, whatever. Okay. Those are accidents. Those are fruits of the conjugal act, but that's not the essence of what marriage is. But everyone wants those accidents, so we're going to make those legally required. You're just destroying marriage because you're cranking it to make these things happen, and they don't happen unless you have the contract in place first. But if you make the contract something that may or may not happen, and you make the accidents first, you're never going to get there. It's like, I'm only going to eat when I'm not hungry, or I'm not going to eat until I'm hungry, or how should I put this? I'm only going to eat when I'm not hungry. And you can't, it's a closed loop. You're never going to get not hungry, so you can never eat. It's like they say, the beatings will continue until morale improves. It's never going to improve. So the marriage will be valid when there's a lot of good feelings. Well, the good feelings will never be there because there's no structure for them to take root. You're just saying, I want the fruits without the tree.
Mm-hmm.
And now the marriage is just the fruits. It's not the tree, because the tree sounds harsh, cruel, legalistic, and all that. Just like it says in the Bible, you will only be saved if you persevere in childbearing.
Mm-hmm.
That's like super politically incorrect to say that.
Very.
Oh yeah, they're like, hey, you're not going to make me have 17 kids, and that's what Christopher West opens up. You know Christopher West, right?
Yes.
He opens up his videos. He says, "What are we supposed to do? Have 17 kids?" Yes.
Yeah.
Just like everyone always has for forever till now. And now we're all going to become Muslim because they're having like 8 kids at least. And then there's
per marriage.
More per wife.
Per wife.
Yeah. And since we don't, and this is why Western civilizations die if you do NFP, because now it's about self. And if you're just giving self, you're interested in, that's all you have the right to is self, then I'm going to do what I feel like doing, not what I really need to do. So when you have a lot of kids, you accomplish a lot more than if you didn't. You got babies needing stuff, man. You're going to do a lot.
Yeah, I believe one deep problem in marriages today is that Catholic marriage has a definite structure. The male has authority over the female. Point. That's Catholic marriage. He's the head of the relationship. But in our society, the female is the primary partner of the relationship over the man. Because whenever the female feels like she can throw you out of the house, get the kids, and make you work to pay her bills. So you are one of the problems that is trying to live a Catholic marriage hierarchy in a world, in a society that has a inverted hierarchy. You know what I mean? So if the male has to be above the female, so he can have authority of her, but the society empowers the woman, the male actually doesn't have the authority to exercise his power nor his duty. You understand me?
Sure. Exactly right. Which is why
That's
all these
a
people,
deep
that's why
problem.
everybody, especially those people who say NFP, say women and men have equal dignity. They do not have equal dignity. No. Because authority is dignity, and also women, they were second in creation, but they were first to sin. So the saints will say they have a different dignity. They have equal purpose under God with what they're doing. You know what I mean? It's like you can't have marriage without the husband or without the wife. So they're equally integral to what's going on, but there's different dignity, man. And that's important. Otherwise, if you have same dignity, you got to have same rights. And even Casti Canubi says you don't have the same. So that's another word people use. But similarly, around here, I don't know how it is in Brazil, the mayors of the towns and stuff get really liberal. So they tell the police, hey, if people are committing crimes, don't arrest them, because these people need hugs. They don't need handcuffs. They need you to love them more, because their parents didn't love them. So we shouldn't really give them a problem. And then the cops are like, I can't even be a policeman because I see somebody beating some old lady in the head, but I can't really do much about it, because if I do, I get in trouble as a policeman. So it gets really frustrating, and they're like, I'm just gonna quit early, and I'm gonna move to the country, and just that's it. So similarly with marriage, they're like, I can't be a husband, and this is what Pearl Davis says all the time. She's like, she's good at that. She's like, the guy has to take control. He has to maintain his frame. He has to run his house. But if he has no way to back that up, no authority, he can't do his job. And now he doesn't feel, he's divided. Like a policeman that cannot use his gun and cannot use his handcuffs, he's impotent. He's like, hey, nice policeman, see you later, boom, boom. Like, whatever, we don't care. So it's big in the USA. Not as bad anymore with Trump, but it's big over here. I don't know what it's like there, but so
here in Brazil, in the conservative government, was approved a law that punishes psychological violence against women. The problem is, what is psychological violence? So in Brazil, if you offend a woman by any way, you can go to jail because she felt offended based on this law.
Wow, Brazil's getting liberal, man. I didn't know that.
Very liberal.
Psychological violence is called husband has dominion over the wife.
You know, one of the things that the jurisprudence, also, what it means, the judges judged that it is a psychological.
Yes.
Okay, jurisprudence. When the husband controls the money of the female, that's a psychological violence. But one of the things that makes the male authority in marriage is exactly deciding where the money is going to. If he can't do this, he can't be the male of the house.
Don't you know, Mateus, we must have unity. Christ is united with his church. Wife must be united with her husband. And if you say the husband is going to decide, that's not unity. So you need to go back and rethink that and just try to come up with some unity. So this is where mutual submission, blah, blah, blah. And marriage is consent. But as I said, and I've said earlier, not anymore. Marriage is consent only at death. So anytime before that, there's no consent, because consent is a continual process. And because you have, that's why they say you have to have unity. So everything has to be together. Like this guy in the beard was explaining, all this multi-level sublime gift stuff. It's not about marital debt anymore. You can't have that. You have to have gift and total unity of stuff. Okay. Just like Christ and his church are unified, husband and wife have to be unified, because it's an icon. It's a sign, and NFP doesn't violate that. Right. So this is kind of to bring it back to what we were talking about. If you can find somebody who can define the marriage, can define the contract, it says all this is true, and we know that everyone else around us is against us. Even her own mom is a feminist, or her dad who works for the government, or whatever. Everyone is kind of like messed up out there.
Yes.
So as long as you and her are not messed up, and you realize that if we step out of line, we step into a lake of fire. Now you can operate. And it's still a risk, and she still might go bad, or you might go bad, but at least it's confronted up front. So it's like a prenup right there. And you also know what to do when love dies, because before it's like, hey, you know, the criminals are coming and taking all my food. I better just give them more food and try to be really nice to them, and that way they won't do this as much. No, that's not going to help. You have to get your baseball bat or your pistol out. That's the only thing that's going to fix this. So the husband has to know, or even the wife has to know, when to pull the plug and call the law or do something different. But if she thinks we just have to keep throwing more love at the problem, then she may just keep getting emotionally abused and get a stroke, or he may keep getting abused other ways and have a stroke, trying to love his way out of the problem, because that's what everyone is telling us to do. Marriage is love, so give it more love. Just like if your neighbor is broke, give him more money, and maybe he'll stop being broke. He will just he won't work. So you can do this marriage stuff if you can when to, like Adam. The sin of Adam was he didn't leave his wife. It's not easy to get up and leave. It's not easy. You got a bunch of wife and kids. You want to file for legal separation and go get the bishop's permission. That's hard, very hard. That's a big deal. But if you're a man, you'll do it. If you know you're supposed to, you'll do it. If nobody teaches you or ever tells you that, and everyone tells you to do more, you're like, I'll just sacrifice more love. I'll put up with more stuff because that's what I'm supposed to do. You need to be told what to do. So if you know that you go to hell for violating the contract, and you know that you have to take matters, you've got to take legal action, or you need to change the status quo if it's not Catholic, you will. That's also good. Do you like calling the police on your neighbors at 3 a.m, Mateus? You don't like it. It's not something you would prefer to do. But if you have to, you will. But you really don't want to, because you got to talk to them. You're trying to sleep. It's a big distraction. It's a big problem. Your neighbors are, I don't know what they're doing. They're throwing fire bombs out front, or they're playing music too. Whatever they're doing is like too nuts, and they won't talk to you. You got to get the police involved, and now they know you. Now they're mad at you. You can't let it go, because it's going to wreck your neighborhood and wreck you ultimately. So it's kill or be killed kind of thing. So you could say to yourself, just like they say, you might not be interested in war, but war is interested in you.
Yeah, war has this characteristic that if someone is in war with you, you are in war. If neither you want it or not, you are at war.
Okay, so what theology of the body says is you just have to love them more while they're trying to cut your head off. Yeah,
that's not an answer.
So that's right. So it's a setup for failure. Because when you start saying it's all about unity, you're at war. It's your definition of love versus her definition of love. Your definition of your ego versus her ego. It's what she wants versus what you want. And it's setting you up for a war from day one. Now, you and I, if I moved down, started living on your couch and moved down there, we could get along for about 5 minutes. But after 5 minutes, it might start to get changed. Okay. How about 5 years? Okay. So this is what happens in the beginning. Things seem pretty cool for a while, but you've already set up the war in the beginning. It's, I have a right to your gift of self, and you have a right, and you have a right to my gift of self. So give me yourself, dude. I want the self. You're not giving it to me. Oh, yes, I am. No, you're not. And the counselor said you're not. So now you have this. That's why I call it a setup for failure. So a setup for success is good fences are good neighbors. Good contracts are good marriages. Define the contract. Define the consequences for not following the contract. You go to hell and the other person knows what to do. If your wife is committing adultery, you don't just take it. If she's not going to change, you separate, which is a huge pain, a very big sacrifice. It's easier. What if you have 5 little kids at home and your wife's got a boyfriend? What are you going to do? Really hard. What decision are you going to make? She's not really changing, but it's not really affecting the kids right now. You know what I'm saying? It's like, whoa. You're going to have to blow that up. And that's man time. That's hard. That's what Adam didn't do. But if you don't know you need to do this, and nobody told you need to do this, because you're Catholic, you don't still divorce like everyone says. You're Catholic. You stay with it and you forgive. But at the same time, you got to follow. I think in the Bible, there's people I have in my other videos. God says, you basically you're a no good simp if you don't do what you're supposed to do. If you don't kick her out and call the law, you're a problem. You're no good. It says it in the Bible. So you've got to man up.
In the Old Testament, Old Covenant, both he who sins and those who consent with the sin were guilty of death. What it means, an adulterer is guilty of death, but those that know the adulterous relationship and don't denounce it are guilty of death as well.
That's right. That was similar to what I was saying in the very beginning of the video, why I'm not going to communion anymore where she goes, because that's what St. Thomas Aquinas said. It's like, if you take communion from these people who are giving somebody where they're doing public sin, there's an adulterer, you're partaking in their sin with them, because you're saying this is not public sin. It's like going to a wedding, a Catholic wedding out of the church. It's a public celebration of sin, and you're going. You can't go to that. And even if it's going to hurt people's feelings, no. And similarly, so that's why I kind of woke up to this, because I always felt not good about going, but I'm like, yeah, to going to church where she goes, my wife goes, even though she's has the boyfriends, blown up the family, taken all the money, took the house, I was like, but darn it, this is where we got married. I have a right to go here. I know she doesn't want me to go here, but I'm going anyway, and I could just deal with it. But none of the priests would talk. It just wasn't cool. And then I read that from Aquinas. I'm like, okay, I'm going, and it's not a huge deal, but it's big enough. This is where I'm used to going. I'm gonna stop. Yeah. And it's always easier to keep with the status quo. It's easier to stay with your problem marriage than to blow it up. But if you have that real problem, like heresy or infidelity or something else that's making life basically impossible, then you got to bring the law into it, meaning the local ordinary. So that's the other problem, is you have to have a local ordinary to bring into it. So if you don't have
you have to have something that will enforce the contract, right?
You have to have an authority to hear the story, you have to have a judge in order to hold court. And there's no judge with Protestantism, because there's no church. This is why Calvin was the first to call marriage a covenant. Because if you have a contract, you have terms and you have law and you have a system of justice, which means you need a judge and you need an enforcement mechanism. And the judge is the bishop, and the enforcement mechanism is denial of sacraments. And Luther said, no, the state gets it all. Now the state went nuts recently in history. So now marriage is gone and you have no enforcement mechanism. And if it has to be done by divine law anyway, it's the bishop. That's why they had separation courts. The separation courts in Brazil probably went away about the same time as they did in the USA.
Mm.
Do you know when that was?
When?
Late 1960s.
1960s, yeah.
Separation courts, because right about then we started having Vatican II, and it takes a few years to filter through. And now Vatican II is saying marriage is love. Then why do we need courts of justice for matters of love? We don't.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing we can say to this. So we have a new essence of marriage. The accidents are now the essence. So there's no way for the court. There's no courts. You can't do that. So that's why they just kind of quietly went away. So we're all living in this fake Catholic structure, this fake Catholic marriage structure. But you got to have that bishop to hear your separation. Otherwise, you have to take matters into your own hands, and it makes it...
That's problematic.
Yeah. This is why I say the Catholic Church is the only solution to red pill. So like I said, God has a way of making it such that you want to reject me, good luck out there. You can't have it on your own terms. You have to go back to Catholicism, or you can't have marriage.
Yeah.
Because you can have it if you have the state kind of sort of doing it okay, then you can sort of get by. But now the state is like the bottom fell out of that. So there's nowhere to obtain justice.
There's no temporal power to obtain justice.
Yeah, well, there's no temporal power to obtain any kind of justice, not vindication even. Let alone enforcement. But the state, the way the church works is the state says, this is the parenting plan, this is the innocent spouse, this is the guilty spouse, this is what's going to happen, and you take this note that I just wrote down and you take it to the state, and they have to do that. If you want to be Catholic, this is what you got to do. And if you don't, you can't have the sacraments. So there you go.
Do you know what was the penalty for adultery in Portugal, medieval Portugal? Or traditionally in Christendom?
Was it death? No.
Yeah, in a lot of places were. In Portugal specifically, the innocent party partner could choose what was the punishment to the other spouse, and 99% of the times were death.
Whoa!
Yeah, that was medieval Christendom. Because if you think,
I didn't know that. I can believe it. The church has the power to do that.
Because if you think a little, the marriage is undissolvable, right? It is for life.
Yes.
So if one of the partners does something that is so grave that it becomes impossible that to continue living together, well, someone has to go. Traditionally, it was that.
And you know
way.
something? The death penalty is good for salvation. Have you thought of that? Because nothing so collects the minds than to be hung in the morning or whatever. So yes, if you know you're going to die in 37 years, you'll be like, yeah, I'll work on that. But if you know you're going to die tomorrow, get it together. Get it. You can repent and whatever. It's like but that's a mixed bag on that solution. But now we've come full circle and we've just rewarded the adulterer. That's what you do. They get rewarded.
There's no real punishment.
Now, my wife got the 2 annulments. The Supreme Court of the Church, the Signatura, is still deciding as we speak about the case that's in front of them, which is, should they do the whole thing over? Because it was a Pope Francis rubber stamp, no questions asked annulment, which is illegal. You know?
So it isn't definitively judged yet.
Correct. But
Oh,
the local authority here in Seattle is so excited to have me go away that they'll do just about anything. So they don't want ever since this whole thing started in 2012, they've done everything to promote divorce and annulment. No reconciliation, no marital rights, no separation decree. We're not going to talk about any of that stuff. We're just going to try to get this annulment done, and anything we can do to get the annulment done, because just like an abortionist kills babies, he doesn't want to see pictures of aborted babies out front in his abortion mill. The tribunal doesn't want to see anything about the marriage contract or rights, because they're guilty of destroying it all. And they're all about NFP and law and stuff like that. So they can't have anything getting in the way and ruining the party. They don't like that. So we think that the signature, the lawyer I know is going to, he already talked, he's going to go over there in Rome and talk to them and say, look, my wife's trying to get married May 23rd in the church to this new guy. And he's got a wife and kids and the whole thing. It's all crazy. But we're going to try to get the signature to hurry up and vote on their ruling before the wedding. Why wait till after? So a year and a half from now, she's married to this other guy, living with this other guy, sells the family home, whatever, bought a house with this new guy. And now the signature says, hey, do the whole annulment over again. There's a little problem there, because now the wife's got the new, so you got to kick him out and go back and start with you. See, it's like this. None of this stuff should be happening. It's really bad. It's like giving you the autopsy, and they're taking your organs apart to figure out the cause of death, only to realize that you're still alive. Like, hold on a minute, put the heart back, sew him back up. Wait, whoa. It's the same thing with the marriage. You can't start operating on a marriage until you do a proper separation, and none of these separations are really proper. There's very few reasons why there should be legitimate. Very few. This is why the annulments is like really low. And as I said before, like we said with sin, if you think it's not a sin, you'll be okay with it. If you think you can separate or divorce, you'll be okay with messing stuff up. You don't have to care that much, you know? Like you don't care.
I've seen a statistic that during the pontificate of Pius XII, there was around the whole world something like 500 annulments approved by the Holy See. And that was already a very high number because of the Soviet era and something like that. So during 15 years, 500 cases were approved by Holy See. Nowadays, about every diocese has 500 annulments per year. The situation is really bad.
Yeah,
really,
not quite
really
500,
bad.
but close. Yes, yeah. The number is like I think I'd calculated in the USA the increase was 21,000% increase. It's just a gigantic number from 300 to 68,000. It's a huge increase.
Yeah.
It's like off. This is because once you make once you change the definition to open-ended, anyone can get it. And a lot of people do. Instead of asking for grace to continue with their contract and hold it, they don't. And then the kids, it destroys the kids because they need that. Even though your mom and dad had weird circumstances or they weren't perfect and everything, they stayed together when they didn't divorce, did they?
No.
Yeah. So this is how you can grow up with your worldview and your idea of who God is halfway intact, because you have mom and dad together. Even though they're fighting or whatever's going on, they're still together. And so you don't have to worry about my dad's in one town and my mom's in another town and I don't know where I belong. Not a good feeling. It's when you're young, you can't handle that stuff. No, it's really, and so then it creates more like liberal zombie Catholics with these kids. And that's what they want. So it's a self-feeding system, just like Women who get abortions become liberal. Not all, because they come around sometimes, but most of them do. So children of divorce become liberal because not all, but most of them, because they can't trust their dad as much because it hurts too much because dad got taken away. So I can't put my trust there. And then they're told all this theology of the body stuff and that there's no fault. There's just love. And they're like, that helps me feel better because I don't have to worry about what's right and wrong so much. That's why, people who are living a sinful life are just fine hanging around you until you bring up sin and reality. Then they get mad. They can't deal with it. So as long as you keep your sharp edges of marriage definition away from me, we'll be just fine. So you want to get that prospect for marriage who is ready to commit to the sharp definitions of marriage and come down on the correct side of the knife. Otherwise, if you wait till later, the knife comes down. They're like, hey, you're cutting my hand off. It's already grown now all the way over here. You've grown. We're not doing this. You're gone. I'm firing you. You're coming at me with Catholic truth. Too late. It's already grown away over the borders. And now you're asking me to cut myself off. And that's what happens to those children. It's like you're coming at me with Catholic truth, but it's too late. I've grown so much different since I was young. I've had to grow a whole new paradigm. This is why changing religions is hard. It's really hard to uproot a tree. It's easier to pick up a little thing. Like I think in the Bible says that when it's brand new, it's easy to pick up. It's easy to pluck out a little weed when it first starts. Yeah. So if we get this marriage contract all lined up first, I shouldn't say it's all downhill, but it's a lot way better. It'll be normal, like your grandparents, just normal. So there's your assignment. Why don't we wrap it up, hey, for now?
Yeah, I think it was a pretty good conversation. We could talk about NFP, the marriage problem in today's Catholic.
Yeah, because they all go together. Yes.
Yeah, I think that you can't talk about one without talking without the other. So you gotta talk about the two together.
Okay, so I'll get this video down to you and you put it up on your site. And then anyone wants to ask any questions, of course, I'm pretty good in the comment section, and I will talk as much as you need, because that's one thing I've noticed is a lot of people do not follow up with their comments or their questions. And I know you'll answer the questions, and I sure will. Okay, so very nice, Mateus. I'm glad you got me going here. And then we'll wait for the video, and we'll be in touch elsewhere.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for this opportunity. I thank everyone that's watching. If you want to contact me or John Farrell, I'll leave every detail here in description. And that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. You bet. God bless.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.